Okay, so we're standing underneath of my 2001 Mustang Bullet with the original 4.6, and it seems it had developed an oil leak, and it looked as though it was coming right from here, from this oil filter adapter with the little radiator hose attaches to. Also, some people call it the oil cooler. So I'm going to replace the gasket here. Start off by draining the antifreeze. Now on the passenger side of the car, you'll see the drain cock here for the radiator. Once I had it drained down level, I disconnected the lower hose here, catching everything with a can. Also, I took the radiator cap off to begin with, let air get to the system so everything come out good. And then I spun off the oil filter to get it out of the way. Now it's just a matter of removing the 5 bolts, one on the bottom here in the front, one behind, and then 3 more up on top. So that's this. Doesn't look like so bad of a job so far. So I'm gonna take the bolts loose, and when I drop the housing down, I'll unplug the oil sender and go from there. We're working on the Bullet still. Got the oil cooler, if you will, off the car, and you can see some signs where looks like it possibly had a leak, like right in here. It wasn't making as good of a seal. Noticed one of the other forum members did his earlier today, and he had the same factory Ford gasket that I have. So looks like it's one that's time has come. Probably in this bottom set here that was leaking. Anyhow, time to get everything cleaned up and put it back together. Okay, so when I got to looking at this thing closely, I had a heavy buildup of scale and material right around the water jacket. So I took a razor blade, a little low buck thing that I learned a long time ago. You don't ever want to dig like towards on aluminum when you're trying to scrape with a razor blade. You always want to drag backwards. So a little bit of slight pressure and a backward pitch on the blade, and most of that scale came off pretty easily like this. If you go forward with a razor blade on aluminum, you run the chance of putting a nick in it, and the surface won't be flat and it won't seal good afterwards. So I did that to get the scale off, just kind of drug it backwards, everything cleaned up good. And then I've got this little abrasive rock. It's true and flat on all 4 sides, and I just kind of went back and forth across it, drug it back and forth across the rock until I had a nice smooth flat surface. It may not look perfect here still yet, it's still got some pits, but they're not so bad that you feel them, and bad enough where I think they'll leak, so I think I'm good. And you'll notice I cleaned the engine block side as well with the razor blade. Now you can get a little more aggressive with the block side of things, just for the fact the block is made out of cast iron instead of aluminum. But the main idea is just to get the new gasket to seal. So clean it up, doesn't have to be perfect, and as long as you got a good smooth surface. A new gasket I got for the car, Felpro 70801. I found Felpro gaskets to be fairly good, pretty reputable. And you'll notice about this gasket, part of the reason I was saying you don't have to get the block surface and the housing perfect, you'll notice there's kind of like a blue line here. It's a raised, embossed, kind of like a sealer on both sides. So when you put this on, tighten it up and smash this flat, it's going to seal itself. Now over a period of time, I'm sure that breaks down, and that's when we get our leaks like we've had. But there again, this car's 2001, so it's getting up in years. Something like this would be expected. I've got over 160,000 miles, so I'll finish it up. Okay, so what I did, I got the housing up here in here in place, and then I set the gasket on the opposite side and used this bolt here and the bolt over here on this side, the 2 to kind of get it all lined up. With the gasket on, I knew everything would line up that way, so I slid it up here, got those 2 bolts started, and then just kind of ran everything down by hand until it pulled up flush with the surface of the block. And then I started the other 2 bolts. Got everything kind of just flush and seated because we talked about that raised boss on the gasket earlier. And if we're going to get a good seal on it, we kind of want to clamp it down evenly. So I'm sure there's a torque spec for this and a torque sequence. I'm not really going to worry about it that much, but I am going to skip around a little bit. Start with the middle bolt and then work my way out and around and progressively tighten a little bit further on each round. Okay, so I got my hoses all reattached. The lower hose, the upper position, had that strange little hose clamp kind of thing that Ford uses from the factory right there. You'll notice one of my fingers touch it right here. If you're going to work on many Fords, I highly recommend a certain tool. This is made just for compressing those type of hose clamps, and it locks in place, and you get the lever to unlock it to release. These suckers are really handy if you're going to keep and use those type of hose clamps. See, Ford uses them all over the place, even on the power steering lines, and I find it's a really good clamp. I prefer it over the screw type clamps. So yeah, I'd highly recommend, if someone's going to keep these Ford style clamps, get the tool. Now, I recently did an oil change on this car, and I know the oil filter is well within range, so I'm just going to clean it up, put it back on, and I'll be done. Now, when you get this all put together, don't forget to plug back in your oil sending unit. Okay, repair's done. I got it all back together. I just went ahead and bought about 4 cans of brake parts cleaner, and I hose everything down really good, try to get it cleaned up. Roll towels, dry it all off, wipe it off, clean everything as best as I possibly can. Because who knows, maybe I didn't have the leak fixed. Maybe that wasn't actually where the leak was. If I get everything cleaned up, dried off, kind of wiped off, wiped down, and I can keep an eye on it then. If the leak comes back, I know I need to investigate a little further. Anyhow, time to put the car on the ground and top off fluids and see what we got. Check for leaks. All right, so my repair's done. I made sure my oil was topped off before I started the car. Topped off the coolant. And now we're just waiting for the thermostat to open up, as indicated by the upper heater hose getting hot, or radiator hose getting hot. I've got the heater running, so it's circulating coolant through there, through the heater core also, try to blow bubbles out. A little trick I learned a long time ago, just kind of squeeze the upper hose to get bubbles out. So that's it. So far, look underneath the car, don't see any leaks, drips, none of that stuff. Everything looks nice. So, bolts should be back together and ready to rock. Okay, had a short drive home, but I drive nonetheless. Everything looks fairly dry still. Nice, nice, nice.